What happens when a global movie star known for calm interviews and spiritual reflections walks into a show famous for sharp questions and unfiltered opinions? And the conversation slowly turns personal. The studio lights of The View glow bright, the audience buzzing with anticipation. Cameras glide across the stage, producers whisper cues, and the hosts sit ready behind the table that has witnessed years of political debates, emotional conversations, and uncomfortable truths. This isn't a place for scripted praise. It's a place where questions land directly. Today's guest is Orlando Bloom, an actor the world first fell in love with as Legolas in The Lord of the Rings, later as Will Turner in Pirates of the Caribbean. A face associated with blockbuster success, red carpets, and global fame. But in recent years, Bloom has spoken more openly about therapy, meditation, personal struggles, and the pressure of fame, especially after becoming a father and navigating life with pop star Katy Perry. As he walks onto the set, applause fills the studio. He smiles warmly, waves, and takes his seat. Calm, polite, composed. Joy Behar leans forward, her expression sharp but welcoming. Orlando, welcome to The View. Thank you. It's good to be here, he replies. The conversation begins comfortably. They talk about his recent projects, fatherhood, and how life has changed since his early Hollywood years. The audience laughs when he shares a light story about balancing work and parenting. Then Joy shifts the tone. You've been very open lately about therapy, meditation, even stepping back from certain parts of Hollywood, she says. Why now? Orlando nods slowly. Because I realized fame isn't everything. It can be loud, and sometimes you lose yourself in it. The audience reacts immediately, some nodding, some clapping softly. Joy responds quickly. But Hollywood gave you everything. Career, recognition, influence. And I'm grateful for it, Orlando answers. But it also takes a lot. Whoopi Goldberg tilts her head. What do you mean by takes a lot? Orlando pauses before speaking. It takes your privacy. Your mistakes become headlines. Your growth becomes public discussion. The room quiets. Joy studies him carefully. So are you saying you regret fame? No, he says firmly. I'm saying I had to learn how to live with it. Something in the atmosphere shifts. Joy leans in slightly. Fans feel connected to the version of you they've watched for years. The action hero. The heartthrob. And now suddenly you're talking about slowing down, stepping back, spirituality. Orlando straightens in his chair. People grow, he says. Yes, Joy replies. But public figures grow in public. That's the deal. The audience murmurs. Orlando's expression tightens for the first time. I never signed a deal to stop being human. That line lands heavily. The camera cuts briefly to Whoopi, who senses the tension rising. We all evolve, Whoopi says calmly. The audience just takes time to catch up. Joy nods, but her eyes remain fixed on Orlando. Some people think celebrities talk about mental health only after they've made millions, she says. Before that, they're chasing fame. The question feels sharper now. Orlando exhales slowly. I chased dreams. Fame was a side effect. Silence fills the studio. Joy folds her hands. So what changed you? Orlando pauses, choosing his words carefully. Becoming a father, he says quietly. Losing myself for a while, and realizing success doesn't fix everything. The vulnerability in his voice shifts the mood again. A woman in the audience whispers, Wow. Joy's tone softens, but the tension remains. And Hollywood? She asks. Orlando gives a small, thoughtful smile. Hollywood is a machine. It keeps moving. You either run with it, or you step aside and breathe. The sentence lingers in the air. Cameras zoom in. Producers exchange glances off stage. This is no longer just an interview. It's becoming personal. Joy leans forward again, her voice steady but intense. But when you step aside, she says, fans sometimes feel like they're being left behind. Orlando meets her gaze. I don't leave them behind, he replies. I invite them to grow with me. The audience breaks into scattered applause. Joy studies him for a moment, almost measuring his sincerity. And if they don't, she asks. Orlando's answer comes softly but firmly. Then they remember the work. And I keep living my life. A long silence follows. It's not hostile, but it's charged. Everyone can feel it now. The moment when an ordinary celebrity interview transforms into something deeper. A clash of perspectives. Fame versus identity. Expectation versus personal truth. And somewhere behind the cameras, producers realize this conversation has moved far beyond its planned direction. Because Joy Behar isn't finished asking questions. And Orlando Bloom isn't giving rehearsed answers anymore. The tension isn't exploding. It's building. Slowly. Quietly. And everyone in that studio can sense it. Something bigger is about to unfold. The applause fades, but the energy in the studio doesn't settle. Something has shifted. The conversation is no longer light, no longer promotional. It is turned inward, personal, reflective, and quietly tense. Joy Behar glances at her notes, then back at Orlando Bloom. There's a curiosity in her expression now, mixed with something sharper. She isn't just interviewing anymore. She's probing. You've spoken in interviews, she begins, about hitting a point where you felt disconnected, even after all the success. That's hard for people to understand. From the outside, it looks like you had everything. Orlando nods slowly, as if he expected the question. From the outside, it did look that way, he admits. But success doesn't protect you from feeling lost. Sometimes it amplifies it. The audience grows quiet again. Joy leans forward. Lost in what sense? Orlando pauses, then answers honestly. In identity. When you're constantly being told who you are, by media, fans, headlines, you start wondering if that's really you, or just a version people expect. Whoopi watches carefully, her expression thoughtful. You've been in this industry since your early 20s, she says. That kind of pressure shapes you. Orlando nods. It does. And sometimes you don't realize how much until you step away for a moment. Joy crosses her arms slightly, her tone shifting again. But stepping away isn't easy when your career depends on staying visible. That's true, Orlando says. But I had to learn that visibility isn't the same as purpose. The line lands softly, but it carries weight. Joy studies him. You're talking about purpose a lot. Is that what led you toward meditation and spiritual work? Orlando smiles faintly. Yes. And therapy. And fatherhood. Those things force you to look inward. Was there a breaking point? Joy asks. The question hangs. Orlando hesitates, not dramatically, but enough for everyone to notice. I wouldn't call it a breakdown, he says slowly. More like a realization. I had spent years chasing the next role, the next project, the next moment. And one day I stopped and asked myself if I was actually happy. Silence. The audience is listening closely now, completely still. And were you? Joy asks. Orlando lets out a quiet breath. Not in the way I thought I would be. Whoopi nods gently, understanding. That happens to a lot of people, she says. Joy tilts her head, her voice measured. But most people don't get to figure that out while living a dream millions wish for. There's no accusation in her tone, but the implication is there. Orlando meets her gaze. Dreams look different from the inside. The words are calm but firm. Joy presses further. Some critics say when celebrities talk about struggles, it feels disconnected from reality. People working 2 jobs, raising families, they don't get to step back and meditate. The audience shifts uncomfortably. Orlando listens carefully, then nods. That's fair, he says. But pain isn't a competition. Pressure looks different for everyone. Joy doesn't respond immediately. She studies him, as if deciding whether to push further. And yet, she continues, you still operate within the same system. Big films, big budgets, big attention. You haven't exactly walked away. Orlando smiles slightly. I never said I wanted to walk away. I just don't want it to define me anymore. The tension tightens again. Joy leans in. But it always will. That's the reality of being a public figure. Orlando's eyes sharpen. Not angry, but focused. Only if I let it, he replies. The audience murmurs. Whoopi glances between them, sensing the temperature rising. Let me ask you this, Joy says. When people see Orlando Bloom, they see Legolas. Will Turner, the action star. Does that frustrate you? Orlando thinks for a moment. No, he says. I'm proud of those roles. They gave me everything. But I'm more than the characters I've played. Joy nods slowly. But the world doesn't always see that. Then the world has more to learn, Orlando answers. The response draws a few surprised reactions from the audience. Joy raises an eyebrow. That sounds almost confrontational. Orlando shakes his head. No, just honest. There's a pause. The kind of pause that stretches longer than planned. Off stage, producers exchange glances. The conversation has taken a direction they didn't script. Joy taps her pen lightly on the table. Let me ask you something more direct. Orlando nods. Do you think fame changes who you are or reveals who you've always been? The question lands like a weight. Orlando doesn't answer immediately. He leans back slightly, looking down for a moment before meeting her eyes again. Both, he says. It magnifies what's already there. The good and the bad. And if you're not grounded, it can pull you apart. Joy watches him closely. And were you grounded? A small smile crosses his face, almost self-aware. Not at first, he admits. I was young. Everything moved fast. And when things move fast, you don't always stop to ask who you're becoming. Whoopi nods again, clearly relating. Joy's tone softens, but the intensity remains. And now, Orlando's voice steadies. Now I try to stay present. For my family. For myself. Not for the image. The audience breaks into soft applause. But Joy isn't finished. She leans forward one more time. And what happens when the image and the real person don't match anymore? The studio goes still. Orlando's expression grows serious. That's when people get uncomfortable, he says. Because they don't know which one to believe. Joy holds his gaze. And which one should they believe? Orlando doesn't look away. The real one. The answer lands like a quiet echo. No music. No laughter. Just silence. Because in that moment, the conversation stops being about Hollywood and becomes about identity. And everyone in the studio can feel it. This isn't just an interview anymore. It's a confrontation between expectation and truth. And the tension is only getting stronger. The silence lingers longer than anyone expects. It's not uncomfortable in the usual sense. It's heavier than that. The kind of silence that means everyone in the room is thinking the same thing, but no one wants to say it first. Joy Behar watches Orlando Bloom closely, her expression no longer playful or probing, but intent. She's listening now, measuring every word, every pause. Orlando sits still, shoulders relaxed, but his eyes focused. He knows the conversation has crossed into territory that can't be undone. This is no longer promotion. No longer safe. It's personal. Joy finally breaks the quiet. You know, she says slowly, there's a moment in every public figure's life when the audience decides who they are. Not you. Them. Orlando tilts his head slightly. And what if they get it wrong? Joy doesn't hesitate. Then you spend your career correcting it. A few audience members murmur in agreement. Orlando nods once, absorbing the weight of that idea. That's exhausting, he admits. It is, Joy replies. But it comes with the territory. Whoopi leans forward, resting her hands on the table. The real question is, how much of yourself do you give away before you start protecting what's left? Orlando looks at her, surprised by the directness. For years, I gave everything, he says. Interviews, appearances, constant work. I thought that's what I was supposed to do. And now? Joy asks. Now I choose carefully, he says. Because attention can become addictive. And when it does, you lose control of your own narrative. The audience nods, some whispering. Joy studies him. But you still chose to come here. Orlando smiles slightly. Because conversations matter. Even difficult ones. Joy raises an eyebrow. You expected this to be difficult? Orlando doesn't laugh. I knew it might be real. That line lands hard. The camera cuts briefly to the audience, faces attentive, serious. Joy leans forward, her voice lowering. Let's talk about reality then. You've been in headlines not just for films, but for your personal life. Relationships, public scrutiny, mistakes. That kind of exposure changes people. Orlando nods slowly. It does. How did you deal with that? She asks. He pauses, choosing honesty over comfort. I didn't deal with it well at first, he admits. I reacted. I tried to ignore it. I tried to outrun it. None of that works. The room is silent. Joy's tone softens. What is work? Orlando's voice is calm now. Grounded. Facing it. Accepting that people will have opinions, and learning not to let those opinions define your worth. Whoopi nods approvingly. That's a hard lesson, she says. It is, Orlando replies. Especially when your mistakes become public property. Joy watches him closely. Do you regret any of it? Orlando doesn't answer immediately. Instead, he leans back, looking toward the lights above the studio, as if replaying moments only he can see. I regret the times I wasn't present, he says finally. When I was so focused on proving something, that I forgot to just live. The vulnerability shifts the atmosphere again. Joy's voice drops, quieter than before. Proving what? Orlando meets her eyes. That I deserve to be there. The words hit deeply. A woman in the audience covers her mouth. Someone else exhales audibly. Joy blinks, clearly not expecting that answer. You were one of the biggest stars in the world, she says. Why would you feel like you had to prove anything? Orlando gives a small, almost tired smile. Because success doesn't erase doubt. Sometimes it magnifies it. The studio feels heavier now. No one is shifting. No one is whispering. They're locked into the moment. Joy folds her hands slowly. There's a perception that confidence comes automatically with fame. Orlando shakes his head. Confidence comes from knowing who you are when the spotlight turns off. The sentence echoes. Whoopi leans back, letting the moment breathe. Joy looks down at her notes, then back up. You're very different from the Orlando people saw 10 years ago, she says. Orlando nods. I hope so. Joy's voice sharpens slightly. But change can make people uncomfortable. Fans, media, even colleagues. That's true, Orlando says. But staying the same just to keep people comfortable. That's not living. The tension rises again, subtle, but unmistakable. Joy leans closer. So this is you now? Slower. More reflective. Less concerned with fame? Orlando's eyes hold steady. This is me learning, he says. Still figuring things out. Joy tilts her head. And if Hollywood doesn't like that version? Orlando's answer comes without hesitation. Then Hollywood will move on. It always does. The blunt honesty catches the room off guard. Joy exhales, a small smile forming. Half impressed, half skeptical. You're very calm, she says. Even when the questions get uncomfortable. Orlando smiles faintly. Calm doesn't mean unaffected. For the first time, there's a flicker of tension in his voice. Joy notices it instantly. What affects you the most? She asks. Orlando hesitates, then answers quietly. When people assume they know my story, without ever asking. The words land hard. Joy holds his gaze. And now we're asking. Orlando nods. And I'm answering. The energy in the studio tightens again. This isn't confrontation in the loud sense. No raised voices. No dramatic outbursts. It's sharper than that. It's two perspectives colliding. One shaped by years of public scrutiny, the other by years of watching it happen. Joy finally leans back, her expression thoughtful. You know, she says, moments like this are rare. When a celebrity drops the performance and just talks. Orlando gives a small nod. Maybe that's what people actually want, he says. Joy studies him. Or maybe, she replies, they don't know what to do when they finally get it. Silence falls again, heavier than before. Because now the conversation isn't just about fame. It's about truth. And truth makes everyone uncomfortable. The cameras keep rolling. The audience barely breathes. And somewhere in the control room, producers realize this interview has turned into something far more powerful than planned. Something raw. Something real. And it's not over yet. The studio feels different now. Not louder. Not dramatic in the way people expect television to be. But heavier. Charged with something real that no script could have predicted. Even the air feels still, as if everyone in the room understands they've crossed into a moment that won't be edited down into a simple highlight. Joy Behar sits back for a second, studying Orlando Bloom, her expression no longer skeptical or probing, but thoughtful. She's seen thousands of interviews, thousands of celebrities, but this one has shifted into something else entirely. You know, she says slowly, people think they know what fame looks like. Glamour, control, confidence. But conversations like this remind them, it's not that simple. Orlando nods quietly. It never is, he replies. The audience is silent, watching closely, absorbing every word. Whoopi leans forward slightly. What happens after this, she asks. After the cameras turn off and everyone goes back to their lives? Orlando takes a breath, as if the question matters more than any before it. Life continues, he says. But maybe with more honesty. At least for me. Joy tilts her head. And for the audience? Orlando glances toward the crowd. They decide what they take from it, he says. Maybe they see a celebrity being human. Maybe they just see another interview. The vulnerability in his voice lingers. Joy taps her pen lightly against the table, then looks straight at him. Do you ever worry, she asks, that being this open changes how the industry sees you? Orlando smiles faintly. It probably does. And that doesn't scare you? A pause. Then calmly, it used to. The audience exhales collectively, almost without realizing it. Joy watches him carefully. What changed? Orlando leans forward slightly, hands resting together. I stopped trying to be who everyone expected, he says. and started being who I actually am. That's terrifying at first, but freeing after. Silence. Then a few scattered claps. Whoopi nods, impressed. That takes courage. Orlando shakes his head gently. It takes exhaustion first. A ripple of soft laughter moves through the audience, breaking the intensity just slightly. Joy smiles for the first time in minutes. Not the sharp television smile, but a genuine one. You know, she says, I pushed you a lot today. Orlando meets her eyes. That's your job. And you didn't shut down, she continues. I didn't want to, he replies. Real conversations don't happen when people play safe. The room goes still again. Because that's exactly what this has been. Not a fight, not an argument, but something more powerful. Two people refusing to stay on the surface. Joy glances toward the cameras, then back at Orlando. Last question, she says. The audience straightens. What do you want people to understand about you, that they still don't? Orlando doesn't answer immediately. He looks down, then up again, eyes steady. That I'm still learning, he says. Still making mistakes. Still growing. And that the version of me people think they know is only one chapter. The words land deeply. No applause at first. Just silence. Then slowly, the audience begins clapping, soft, then louder, then filling the studio. Not the excited applause of entertainment. The kind that comes from recognition. Understanding. Joy nods once, almost respectfully. Fair enough, she says quietly. The segment begins to close. Cameras pull back. Music cues faintly in the background. But the moment doesn't end when the lights dim. Because outside the studio, the conversation explodes. Clips from the interview begin circulating within minutes. Social media fills with reactions. Some viewers praise Orlando's honesty, calling it one of the most genuine celebrity moments they've seen on daytime television. Others debate Joy's direct questions, arguing whether she pushed too hard or asked exactly what needed to be asked. Headlines appear. Orlando Bloom gets real on The View. A conversation that turned personal. Fans react to emotional interview. Online comments flood in. He looked different, more grounded. That didn't feel like acting. That felt real. Joy didn't let him off easy, and that's why it mattered. The discussion spreads across platforms, across audiences, across opinions. Because moments like this don't fade quietly. They stay. They echo. Back in the now empty studio, the chairs sit still under dimming lights. The tension is gone, replaced by a quiet aftermath only those present fully understand. A conversation happened here. Not perfect, not scripted, but real. And sometimes, that's more powerful than any dramatic confrontation. Because instead of shouting, it revealed. Instead of breaking, it opened. And those are the moments people remember. The ones that feel human. The ones that feel honest. The ones that stay long after the cameras stop recording. Now it's your turn. What did you feel watching this moment unfold? Do you think Joy pushed too hard, or asked the right questions? Did Orlando handle it with honesty, or careful control? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your opinion matters, and every perspective adds to the conversation. And if you want more intense, emotional, and cinematic stories like this, stories that take you inside the moments no one expects, make sure you subscribe to Talk Flair, like this video, and stay with us for the next story that everyone will be talking about.